Americans often complain that our electoral campaigns go on for too long and that they cost too much money. And there are many reasons for why this might be the case, but the reason that I want to talk about right now is related to a political fact or a political practice that makes the United States fairly unique among liberal democracies, and that's the existence of primary elections, or what we call primaries. We all know that who ultimately ends up holding political office, whether at the federal level or the state level or the local level, will be the person who gets the most votes in what we call the general election. Right? The one that most people pay attention to is the presidential election every 4 years, where some Democrat and there's a Republican, and whoever gets the most votes gets the office. That's the general election. But how are those two candidates decided upon? That's where primary elections come into play. And primaries are not something we've always had in the United States. Here's how it works. I want to start with a contrast. In many European countries and countries around the world, if you want to represent a particular political party in an election, the way to get yourself on the ballot is to convince party leaders, perhaps in your locality, to put your name on the ballot instead of someone else's. And so oftentimes, there are different procedures for this, but party leaders have a lot of control over who represents the party in the election. So you have to please the party leaders in order to get their support and be on the ballot. It's different in the United States. Party leaders are important. Once upon a time, things worked very similarly here. If you wanted to be a Democrat, you had to convince, say, local party leaders to put your name on the ballot as the Democratic nominee. And if you couldn't convince them, then you couldn't call yourself a Democrat in the election. But reformers in the 19th and 20th century thought that this gave too much power to political leaders, people who could use that power to cut deals in the proverbial smoke-filled back rooms. So they wanted to find a way to break the power of party leaders, and the idea they came up with was primary elections. So in a primary election, we actually have an election to see who will be able to stand in the general election. So we have 2 rounds of elections. And what that means is, for example, if you want to be the Democratic representative from a certain district, it's not the case that party leaders can put you on there. Maybe somebody else wants to be the Democratic representative too. What you have to do is actually get yourself chosen by a broader electorate in a primary election. And of course that means that there's even more campaigning to do. This is one of the reasons why campaigns go on for so long and cost so much money, because candidates need to first get themselves elected in the primary before they can get themselves elected in the general election. And this is, as I said, not the way it's done most other places. It was chosen in the United States specifically in order to weaken the power of party leaders to impose discipline upon other members of their party. So many people like that idea, like the idea that our politicians, our representatives, should be able to be independent-minded, but we should also recognize that one of the costs of that, of weakening party leaders, is that we've created an electoral system that is more complex, that takes longer to work, and that costs more money. But it's not clear that you can have one without the other.